Greetings and a very good evening to everyone present here. I am Prajakta and I will be hosting the student talk today on behalf of Proteus, the biology club of IISER. Our speaker for today is none other than Nadi Dixit, an esteemed alumna from batch 14. As we all know, she was an active member of various clubs during her time here, including the annual college magazine Sopanam, as well as the quizzing society of IISER. Further, on a more academic note, she completed her major project from the lab of Dr. Ullasa, wherein she carried out her work on the feeding habits and physical properties of urban and rural geckos. She is now pursuing her research doctoral degree at the University of Kassel in Germany. Thus, her talk today will follow her journey as a research student in both India and Germany and will highlight her personal experiences of working in these different lab environments. I request everyone to please keep your microphones muted and videos off throughout the duration of the talk. Further, I request everyone to kindly hold their questions till the end of the talk, wherein we hope to have an engaging interactive session. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the virtual mic to Nadi for a delightful and enlightening session. Thank you.
Um, so hi everyone, thanks for that. Thanks for the introduction. So like Prajakta said, I am an alumna of IISER Trivandrum. Specifically, I'm from batch 14. So this would mean that I got into IISER in the year 2014. So I got into IISER through the KVPY stream. So I wrote my KVPY exam and I was in 12th. My first choice was actually IISER Pune, and I didn't get it. My second choice was IISER Trivandrum because of proximity to Bangalore. So I got that. I was actually a little confused about what I should be talking about today. And Shivi agreed that I should probably talk about my experiences at IISER and then go ahead to my experiences here in Germany. Well, I've been here only for a year, but my experiences here for a year or something. And then maybe in the end, you can just, if you have some questions or if you want to know something more, you can ask me. Right. I think this, you guys are okay with this whole structure where I first talk about my work in IISER and then I talk about my experiences here, my PhD experiences. So I hope you guys are okay with that. Right. I actually enjoyed my time at IISER Trivandrum. I was there for 5 years, like all BSMS students, and it was a very enriching experience, both from a research point of view and from a personal point of view, because it also contributed a lot to my personal growth. I met a lot of interesting people there. I made really good friendships there, and I also I obviously none of us know how research works before, like when we are in 12th or something like that. So I learned the ways of research at IISER, and it was overall a really, really great experience. And I'm quite glad that all of you are getting to experience that right now. Most of my experiences in IISER, like my growth as a researcher, was more because of the internships that I did, more than the courses itself at IISER. I spent a lot of time, I gave a lot of time planning out my internships and deciding what I should do during the summer. So in my first year, again, my first encounter with research or how exactly research is done was during my first year internship. So that was in IISc. So I applied for an internship at IISc. I applied in IISc mostly because it's in Bangalore, and I'm from Bangalore, and I wanted to stay closer to home. I was a little homesick in my first year, so I wanted to stay very close to home. I wanted to be able to go home and come back and stuff like that. So I applied in IISc. I didn't really have a set plan. I didn't really know what I was interested in. Of course, I know most of you wouldn't have a plan in your first year. Like, what are you interested in? You're still discovering. So I was in that phase because I did not know what I wanted to do. But a couple of friends that I had, they said, CES, the Center for Ecological Sciences in IISE is a really big department, and there's a lot of work that goes on there. So maybe you can apply there. So some of them applied there, so which is why I tried. So I applied to Dr. Karthik Shankar's lab, which is a herpetology lab in my first year. Okay, at any point of time, if you guys think that I'm digressing, please tell me, because I have this habit of digressing a lot. Anyway, so I applied to Dr. Karthik Shankar's lab for my first year internship, and it was primarily a herpetology lab, but I was not really sure what I would be doing in the lab. And he was also, like, Dr. Karthik Shankar was also very honest with me, and he said, yeah, well, there isn't a lot for a first year to do, and all that I had, the work that I had in the lab was to take morphometric measurements of frogs, like specimens that were already stored in formaldehyde. So I was just supposed to take the morphometric measurements. That was my job, just that. So obviously it sounds really boring. So a couple of days I was just sitting in this room, and I would just take morphometric measurements of frogs. And it really got boring after a while. I was just getting drunk on formaldehyde in the room all day. So what I started exploring a little bit, in the sense that I started reading up a little bit from literature from the lab, from Karthik Shankar's lab, and I discovered there was this really big, wonderful data set which already had morphometric measurements from previous studies or whatever of frogs. And I had also come across literature where there could be a possible correlation between morphometric characteristics and climatic data. Like, for example, there could be a correlation between the size and temperature, rainfall, altitude, things like that. So I kind of got interested in that, and I took a project of my own. I did a small project alongside my morphometric thing. I did a side project of my own in IISER, where I took the morphometric data that was already available, and I went online and I looked up and I dug up climatic data for the regions where these frogs are from. And then I learned R for this process, because I wanted to see if there is a correlation. And I think this was my first foray into the whole field of data analysis and bioinformatics. So I learned R during the time, and I did a very, very basic linear regression by myself. So that was when I realized that I actually like playing around a lot with data. It is very exciting for me. So I did get a very of course, it was not a very serious study. So I did get some patterns. I thought I got some patterns, and I did speak to Karthik Shankar about it. But yeah, he was happy about it and he appreciated it, and that was the end of it. So anyway, my second year internship was at NCBS, again in Bangalore. So because I already had experience in an ecology lab or in a herpetology lab, I kind of assumed, this is not true, but I kind of assumed that you can only apply again in a similar lab, a lab which deals with the same subject, because then you can say that I have experience already, and then it's easier for you to get in the lab. So this was at around this time I got in touch with Dr. Varadgiri. He is actually a very prominent herpetologist in India, and he was at the time working in NCBS. So I got in touch with him, and he actually told me something very interesting about femoral gland studies in Indian geckos, specifically in Hemidactylus. And he said it's a highly unexplored area, and maybe somebody can do it. And I was really excited at the time. I was like, ooh, maybe I can do it, and I'll be the first one to do it in India and all that. So he got me in touch with Shannon Olson, Dr. Shannon Olson from NCBS. So she's a chemical ecologist there. She has a lab, a chemical ecology lab. So he got me in touch with her. And in my second year, I kind of explored the chemical composition of femoral gland secretions of geckos. So that was my first experience with geckos. But it was mostly I did GCMS, that is gas chromatography and mass spectroscopy of these secretions. And I didn't really get anything out of it, as in we didn't really get anything. So we just wanted to see if there are any volatile substances in the secretions, but we didn't really find anything as such. So that was the end. I think it was the only internship throughout my IISER life where I didn't do data analysis, or I didn't do something that I'm comfortable with. From my third year, my internships got really interesting. And I think most of you know already that it is during their third year that IISER sends, like the IISER admin, they send an email about DARD scholarship, and you can apply for it and you can explore labs outside, like specifically Germany. So I applied for DARD. When you apply for DARD, the thing is you should already have a professor. You should already be in contact with the professor, and the professor should have accepted you. And later you will know if you get it or not. So at the time I was exploring, and I got in touch with Dr. Miguel Vences at TU Braunschweig in Germany. And he's also a very prominent hepatologist here, and he does a lot of things. It's not just hepatology. His lab does a diverse array of things. So I got in touch with him, and he was really keen on me joining his lab. But unfortunately, I did not get the scholarship itself. I did not get that. And I thought that's the end of my internship dreams in Germany. But when I told Miguel that I didn't get it, he said he was still very keen on me working in his lab. So he said, it is okay, you can still come. And he was ready to pay me, actually, which is actually quite rare. It doesn't really happen, but he was ready to pay me, and he also gave me accommodation. So it was a really crazy experience, I would say, one from which I learned a lot. Because he had this apartment of his where he actually dumped all the things that he needed for field work or whatever, and there was a small guest room in that apartment, and he said you can take that. And so I was living in that small apartment for like around 2 months or something. But it was a really great experience in Germany. I think this was 3 years ago. So of all the internships I've done, this was like, I think, the most satisfying. Because as soon as I joined the lab, he quickly integrated me into this project that the lab was already working on. It was actually a paper. So they were the paper was on the discovery of a new frog species in Madagascar. So most of the work on the paper was done. Except that there was a small part where they needed to resolve the phylogeny of this one frog species with respect to the sister taxa. So they needed somebody to do it. And I had already mentioned to Miguel that I'm actually interested in handling data. So he saw that, okay, maybe she can do it. So I had this nice little project of my own where I had to, I got this opportunity to do everything like right from the scratch, like getting the DNA out from the tissues, and then doing the PCR, running it on the gel. And he actually had a very basic capillary sequencer in his lab, so running it to the sequencer and then getting the data out and then editing the sequences and then finally building the tree. So there was this entire little project that I had of my own. And this little thing, it resulted in a publication actually, and I co-authored a paper with Miguel in my third year internship. So this was like a very satisfying internship. So I was so happy when I finished this internship in my third year, and because it was also my first time outside alone, and I got to see life outside and how it differs from India and everything, and kind of gave me this full rush of confidence. And then I came back to IISER, and I was already thinking about my next internship. I was like, oh, I want to go somewhere. I want to explore more. I was already thinking that way. So this time in my fourth year was actually quite interesting because I did a lot of interesting courses. I really liked the courses that I did in my fourth year. And on top of that, it was in my fourth year. Yeah, it was in my fourth year that we moved to the Vithura campus, because in my first 3 years, we were in CET campus, and fourth year was when we moved to Vithura campus. So it was actually a really cool year, I must say. And then, like most of the time I was actually thinking about my internship in my fourth year. So where should I go next, and what should I do and stuff. But I was always thinking about going to the US. Like I thought, okay, I want to go to the US because now that I've explored Europe, I want to go to US and see if I can, just see the difference and how it works. So I was actually sending out a lot of emails, but only to labs which suited my interests. So while at Miguel's lab, I kind of got interested to population genetics, the whole idea of population genetics. And also in my 4th year, I did these courses in evolutionary biology, and that's where I got more familiar with population genetics, and it was something that I like. So then I thought, okay, maybe I need to get some hands-on experience in population genetics. So I started writing to a lot of labs in the US where I could probably get into a project where I can do population genetics. And I actually sent out an email to a professor at UC Berkeley. It was actually kind of a joke, really, because I didn't think I would get an internship at UC Berkeley, and it was just like, okay, why not? I just sent it, and very surprisingly, so I wrote to a professor, Erika Brie Rosenblum, Brie. So we call her Brie. So I wrote to Brie's lab, and she was actually really happy that I'm interested in whatever that lab does, and she's actually a great person. So she said, yeah, why not? You can come. And that was really surprising for me. Then we quickly did an interview with her PhD students so that we can figure out what project that I could be a part of and all of that. But the only downside to this was that she did not really have an additional funding as such, and neither did I. I did not have any scholarship that would support my travel to the US, or other than my KVQI scholarship, which probably wouldn't cover, of course. And but she was really nice, and she said that she can help me out with the day-to-day things like groceries and stuff like that, which I thought was pretty cool, and she did. So yeah, so this is one project that I had to kind of bear the expenses on my own, but it was really worth it in the end. So while at Bree's lab, I was, again, like I said, I worked with population genetics. So one of her PhD students, Ali, so she was working on different populations of frogs. I don't remember the species, but affected by chytrid fungus in Central America. So we were basically looking at different populations, if there is a population structure at all. So I was looking at that. So in the end, this project resulted in me making a lot of structure plots, which was really, really cool. So the major difference that I found between my internship in my 3rd year and my internship in my 4th year, which I would also say kind of sums up the difference between the mentoring approach in Europe and in the US, is that while at Miguel's lab in Germany, I had help, like there were times when Miguel, my professor, he would sit with me and he would teach me how to go about doing things. Like, like you can do that, you can do this command does this and everything. So it was like he was actually very much involved in teaching me. And so that experience was different. Well, in the US, at Berkeley, they just told me what I should do, and that's it. I had to figure out everything on my own. And this was the first time I got into cluster computing and dealing with really large data sets. And but they said, ask for help only if you really cannot figure it out. Otherwise, Google and find out yourself. So this was a very hands-off approach where I had to figure out everything by myself. And when I was in the US, I also attended a conference. And I actually spoke to a lot of students there. And what most of them, like PhD students there, because at the time I had in mind that I would go to the US for my PhD. So I just asked them, so how is it there? How is life for a PhD student? And most of them, what they told me was that it's a really hands-off kind of mentoring. Like the professor really does not involve so much in your work. You have to figure out everything by yourself, and you probably talk to your professor like not very often. So this is one difference I found, which kind of probably sums up the difference in mentoring approaches between the US and Europe. I could be wrong, I'm not sure, but this is kind of what I got from that experience. Right. So so because I paid so much attention to my internship, I didn't really have a lot of time to plan out my major project. Because right after I came back my 4th year internship, I had to deal with my major project. So usually how it works is that most students, they start off their major project in the summer, in the fourth year summer itself, because they get a head start and they have more time. So that is what my professor preferred as well. But I really did not want to let go of this opportunity. So I went to the US anyway. So because of this, I did not have a lot of time to plan out my major project. Like I said, in my fourth year, I had these really interesting courses, and I thought, okay, why not? And then I applied to this lab, and I quickly got integrated into this behavioral ecology animal behavior project. So at the time, it was something that I wanted to try, maybe get an experience in. Okay, yeah, why not? But with time, in my fifth year, I kind of realized that this project did not suit me. I realized that so first off, animal behavior, doing animal behavior for a short-term project like a major project is, especially with big animals like geckos, it's not really a great idea, I would say, because standardization itself takes a really long time when it comes to these experiments. So these are things that I learned as I progressed further into my major project. Like as I realized that, oh, okay, shit, it's like this, it's like this. So there's just simply too many factors that you need to take into account. And that is one thing about animal behavior, which is in itself a difficult thing to do, especially when it is short term. And second, I realized that personally I'm not good at it. So I'm really bad at handling animals. I'm not patient enough, and I simply can't handle animals. I'm not good at it. So this is something that I realized because I couldn't take care of these geckos properly, and I kind of seemed to lose interest. Sometime in the middle, and that was how it was for me. My major project. And with time, I also started realizing that, okay, so with each experiment that I ran, I kind of realized that, oh, I forgot about this, I forgot about this. And in the end, the data that came out of it was really, really messy, and it was not a good project for me. Actually, my major project was not a great experience. But one good thing that came out of it was that I realized that I cannot do this thing. Like I cannot deal with living organisms. Like I can handle them, and I'm not good at it. So this is what I realized, and this is the experience that I got from my major project. Well, at the same time, like my fifth year is actually quite a stressful time, as some of you might know, some of you will know in the future, because one thing, you are doing a major project, which is it's a big investment of your mental energy. And on the side, if you're interested in continuing with research, which I think a good percentage of you are interested in going on with research, so you'll be looking for places to go for a PhD. So this is really stressful to manage both of them side by side, because you'll have to be doing a lot of applications on one side, and then you'll also have to be handling your major project on the other side. In the beginning, I applied to like say 5 universities or something like that in the US. So I was I think too excited, because I was like, oh, I had been to UC Berkeley and all that, and and then I applied to all top universities in the US. I don't know. I actually thought that I would get it, but I didn't. I got rejections. So it was actually quite depressing at the time. But then I was so stressed, also because of my major project, which was not working out. I thought, okay, screw it, I'll just take a break. So my original idea was to take a break, like maybe for 6 months or something, and then start applying for a PhD. So it was at the time that I was crying to Harsha that, oh, nothing is working out. So then he told me, he recommended this website to me, like a directory. It's called Evolder. So you guys can use it for reference. If you didn't catch that, you can contact me again and I'll tell you about it. So Evolder is this directory, this website which posts like hundreds and hundreds of positions and jobs in the field of evolutionary biology and genetics, so from all over the world. So I was just scrolling through. So Harsha told me about this, that maybe you can just go through it and see if there is any project that suits you and you can probably apply. I was scrolling through the website, and that's when I found this project that I'm currently uh, working on, my PhD. So I found this one project that really incorporated everything that I had done during my third and fourth year internships, that is systematics and population genetics. So dealing with data basically. So it seemed quite interesting, and I thought, okay, I will give it a shot. I didn't really expect to get it. I just wanted to see how it works in Europe, like like how the whole application process works in Europe. I had no intentions of going to Europe, in fact, but I thought, okay, let me just give it a shot. But then it happened really fast. I sent an email and they liked it, and then they did a quick interview. They did an interview, and I think we spoke twice or something, and then they actually liked me, and they wanted me to join, and it all happened really fast. So I actually had to join in August last year. So my PhD project, my work here is, like I already mentioned, systematics and population genetics. So I am dealing with the spatial and temporal evolution of a genus of plant called Makaranga, that is from Southeast Asia, the Sundaland to be specific, like Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, that region. So more than the genus itself, it's one specific section within the genus, a section of species which seem to have recently diverged or radiated, so which basically has a very complicated phylogeny. So I'm dealing with that right now. And it's also a very interesting ecosystem because it's like a collection of so many tiny islands and everything. So it's really interesting to study the whole process of radiation and dispersal and everything. So this is my project, and I'm actually happy with it because I don't really have to go to the lab and work or anything. I just have to work on my computer, which is something that I really like. From here I'll just talk about how these are my experiences from IISER, and I know I just spoke about my internships, but I think honestly these were the most important experiences I got from IISER. Anyway, but one thing I kind of feel a little bad about is that while at IISER, I always wanted to go out and do research elsewhere. So the entirety of my 5 years, I was always writing to professors outside. I was always networking with professors outside. I was not really interacting with professors in the campus. I was not interacting with students inside the campus and asking them what is going on within the campus, like what kind of research is going on within the campus. I'm actually quite oblivious to all of that. I don't know why I did that, but I did it. So in your 5th year, when you have to do your major project, you have to be really involved in it. So then I realized, oh shit, this is my first project at IISER. And I was a little lost, to be honest, because I think this is why I couldn't make a good decision about, what I wanted to do, because I hadn't really developed a good network within IISER itself. So I would say, please do that. It's something that I didn't do, but please do that. Have a good network with professors within the campus as well. I mean, not just definitely I recommend to have contacts with professors outside the university too, or outside IISER too, elsewhere. But within IISER as well, please maintain good network. Talk to professors always, please. And I think if you if you talk to them, I think they will always welcome you. And so don't hesitate to get in touch with your professors, is what I would say. Right. So now I guess some of you would like to know how PhDs work in Europe. So I have only been here for a year, but it has been a great experience for me. So the basic difference between PhDs in India and in Europe, or I would say India/US and Europe. So I'll only be talking about US and Europe because I guess that's where most of the crowd goes to from IISER. So in Europe, PhD programs are structured. So they are called structured PhD programs. So this would mean that there are well-defined projects already. So the group or your professor, whoever it is, already has a project in mind. So they have a project in mind. There's already a grant written. There's already money for it. It's just that they're looking for somebody to join the project. So when you join your working group or your lab, you already know what you should be working on or what you will be working on. So this is unlike how it works in India or in the US, for instance, where you apply to a department or the university. You don't apply to a working group or a professor. So then you get in, and then you probably have to do try out different labs and do rotations or whatever, and then figure out what you're interested in, and then join the lab, and then get familiar with the system in the lab, and then figure out what you want to do in the lab, and then come up with the questions. So this usually takes up around 2.5 years. I would say this is why PhDs in India and US usually take around 5 to 6 years, because it involves this one particular phase where you have to figure out what you want to do, and you also have to figure out the questions you want to ask and all of that. But in Europe, it's not like that, because you join like a ready-made tailored project already. So there's a project and you see, okay, it suits you, and you join it already. So the first day in your lab, you already know the title of your project, something like that. So this also explains the difference in application processes between the two places, Europe and US. In Europe, it's a more I would say a personal process, because you are in touch with the professor who you want to work with. So you apply there, and then the professor goes through your or the working group. They go through your application. They go through your CV. It is them who will decide whether or not you're well suited for their project and all of that. And then they eventually take you in or not. So that's how it works. So what they will be mostly looking at is whether or not you have enough experience to be able to take up this particular project. So that is what they will be looking at. Experience is what they will be majorly looking at in Europe. But in the US, because you're applying to the department or because you're applying to the university, it is not really the professors who go through your application, as per my knowledge, but it is somebody in the administration or something like that. So they go through your application. So I guess you need to have this really cool, good scores and good GRE scores or good GPA or something like that. This is something that stands out in US applications. But in Europe, they're mostly looking for experience, because they want to see whether or not you will fit well into the project. So I, in fact, had applied to this university in the US, and this professor wanted to take me in, but he was actually very interested, and we were talking about it for quite a long time. And then he eventually got in touch with me, and he said, unfortunately, you did not make the cut. So he said that they did not want to take you in, but I don't know why, but I wanted to take you in. So you see that professor really does not have a say in the US, as per my experience. But in Europe, it is the professor or the working group who decide whether or not you should join. So I think which makes more sense to me, actually. So yeah, so if there's anything else you guys want to know, you could ask me or whatever, and I guess this is all I have to say. Well, maybe another thing, because some of you mentioned that you'd like to know about life in Europe and how it works here, the cultural differences and everything. I would say Europe is quite a peaceful place. It's a really slow place, I would say. It's quite slow. People are not rushing into anything. People take their time, and it's very peaceful. And other than the really big cities, say in Germany, like say Munich or whatever, or Berlin or Frankfurt, most of the cities are just like big towns. It's really quiet, and it's it's very peaceful. So if you prefer that, I would say Europe is a great place for that. And as opposed to the US, the public transport is really, really good in Europe. So you can get around very easy from one place to another and from one country to another. The railway system is incredible. So if you're into traveling, Europe is a great place. So yeah, definitely, I'm sure that some of you will eventually, of course, go abroad for your PhD or whatever it is. So I just want to say this because I experienced it and I thought that maybe it would be useful to some of you. So it's a big change, yeah. When you move to a different country, you have to adapt. There's a whole new culture, and there's usually nobody. And this is really different from how your life is in IISER currently. You get everything in IISER very easily. So there's maybe food, or you have your own room or whatever. It's quite simple in IISER. But once you get out, I would say you're just thrown in the middle, and you have to start figuring out things, I would say, for yourself. So it gets a little tough when you start out. In the beginning, it gets really tough. And I have spoken to a lot of people, some of my seniors too, and a lot of people, they kind of feel like, I want to go back to India. I don't really like this because, it's so bad. There's nobody here. I don't have friends, and I'm not familiar with the system. And it's you will feel that you'll feel the change hitting you very hard. And a lot of people would want to go back. Even I was in that situation where I wanted to go back. This will happen to most of you. You will feel, okay, this is probably not worth it, and I want to go back. But I just want to say that hold on, things will get better. So don't make rash decisions when you're outside. It will be hard when you first start out. It will be hard for you, but don't make rash decisions and say, okay, I want to go back and quit and go back. Give it time and hold on, because it's an experience that's really, really worth it. And for me as well, things have gotten much, much better than how they were last year at this time. So yeah, so if you're ever in this phase, when you feel like, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into? I want to go back home. I don't like this life. It'll get better. I'm sure some of you will go through it, but it will get better. This is one thing I will say. And yeah. So if there's anything else anybody wants me to add, or if there's anything that you guys want to ask me, please. Or if you're not comfortable asking here, you can text me or send me a message on Instagram or okay, is there a message? Wait. Okay, so Abel wants to ask, so how has the pandemic affected your work? Maybe not your work per se, but the work done in your lab as a whole. All right. Okay, so I would say the pandemic did not really affect my work because, like I already mentioned, I'm dealing with data. I don't really go to the lab and work. I don't have to go to the lab to work. And I can actually access my computer from back at home. Also, I was in that phase of my project which did not really need me to be here all the time. So it was actually it was a time where I had to read up a lot, where I had to familiarize myself with the system, and I had also sent my sequences, my samples to a company for sequencing data. So for next gen sequencing, I had sent my my samples to a company, and I was waiting for my sequences. So it was a time when I was waiting And at the same time, I was supposed to be working. I mean, I had to work on my proposal. So here, once you are here, you have to write down a proposal of what your plans are, what you'll be doing, and what your work is about, and all of that. And you have to submit it to the university for, you know, a formal registration that you are a PhD student and you'll be starting. So I was in that phase of my project when the whole pandemic started and the whole lockdown thing happened in Germany. So I was at home for 2 months, which was actually bad. It was really bad because I had no contact whatsoever and I was alone at home for 2 months. But work per se was not very much affected because I could still coordinate with my professor from at home. And yeah, I was just working on my proposal and it didn't really affect my work a lot. Then after some time, I got this permission to be able to come to university, and yeah, I just continued my work. Like work per se, I'm lucky that it did not get affected that much. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So is there a significant difference in the structure or working of labs in India? Yeah, like I said, outside, matlab, I only talk about Germany, Europe that I'm quite aware of. So like I said, in India, it's mostly an unstructured program where you have to, you apply to a department or you apply to a university and then you get in and then you have to do rotations. I think some of you know that. You have to, you know, go about from one lab to another and probably, you know, get some experience and then figure out what suits your interests and then get into a lab and then figure out what you want to work on. So that takes like about 2 years to, you know, figure out what you want to work on. But it's not like that in Europe, where you're already integrated into a project. So another thing I would say, another important aspect of PhD programs in Europe is that it is employment. It is considered employment here. So it's like a job. So my PhD, for example, is a contract that I have for 3 years. So it's a job. So you get a salary, you have to pay taxes, you have to do health insurance, like anybody who has a job. So it is like it's a job basically. So because of this, you have a minimum number of hours that you have to give in every week. So they'll say this is the number of hours that you have to work per week, and if you do that, yes, you've satisfied your this thing. So that is how it works, because all employment rules apply to you as well. So that is, I think, a very big difference that is between say India and Europe, because it is considered an employment and it's a contract. So you just have to follow all the clauses of a contract, which is like all you have to do is come into your university and work for a set number of hours for a week, and that's how it is. And maybe because I am an international student, I don't have to do this whole teaching thing. I don't have to TA or anything. It could be because my project is also funded from an external source. So my project is funded from an external grant. It's a DFG grant. So my money comes from the government directly. But the others in my lab, they get their money direct from the university. So when you get your salary from the university, you're supposed to do teaching or something like that. So, but I don't have to do teaching. So it doesn't, under my contract, I don't have to do teaching. So it's a contract-based work basically. And usually it's for 3 years here, a maximum of 4. You can get an extension or something. And one good thing here is that even if you get an extension, you don't have to really worry a lot about whether or not you'll get money for your extra time. Because one thing, your lab usually helps you out. Your lab, the university gives you an extension. One thing, the university usually gives you an extension if you want to take some additional time. Even worst case scenario, if the university does not give you an extension, because you're paying insurance, you're paying social insurance here. You're some social security or whatever insurance you're paying every month, so you're insured. So you would be considered unemployed, and you would be getting unemployment insurance money from the government every month, which is also not so bad. So even if nobody is paying you, the government will pay you because you have been paying insurance all this while, and you will still get money. That is the worst case scenario. So I would say it's quite secure position if you have a PhD position here, because it's also employment, so it's not really easy for them to kick you out. You're protected by whatever employment laws or whatever rights. You're protected. You as an as an employee, you will have a lot of rights. So it's quite a secure thing, I would say, in Europe. And yeah, that's how it kind of differs from India. Yes.
Hi, Nadi.
Yes.
Firstly, great talk. I enjoyed it. It was very, very informative, very fun. My question is actually, so this phase that is absent in the Europe PhD process, where you don't have this accommodation to PhD thing. So does it mean that when labs are looking for new graduates to come on, they are meant to be like specialized in their work to begin with? Because
Yes.
like our BSMS degree is not to that super specialized
Mhm.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Yes. So, like I said, this is kind of one of the chief differences between how applications are processed, say between the US and Europe. So, what they usually look for in Europe is your experience, is the amount of experience you have. And yes, you're right, because this BSMS program is something that you don't really you don't specialize in anything per se, right? But I have, from my experience and from me talking to a lot of people here, my friends over here, what I see is that most of the people who have landed a PhD position in Europe, the experience that they needed to be able to get into a lab in Europe, they got it from their major project. So major project is actually quite a big deal, I would say, because it's the biggest project that you have up until then. And if you get enough experience during a major project, that would suffice. So a lot of people who have landed their who have landed their PhD here in Europe, it's mostly because of the work that they did during their major project. Some of them don't really have like great internships, like like I had internships that kind of stood out for me. But even if you don't have internships, if you have done sufficient work during a major project and you have enough experience during a major project, that should be enough. But yes, in Europe in general, they look for experience, because I mean, it's not like you have to join the lab and immediately start working the next day. That cannot happen. You still have to familiarize yourself with the system, and they don't still expect you to be an expert. They don't. They still know that you have to learn a few things. For example, when I joined my lab, so my professor told me that, yeah, if you don't have, because my lab is actually a molecular lab, actually my working group, and I'm currently the only one who's doing data analysis or bioinformatics. Like, I'm the only one who's purely into this. So she said that because you don't really have a lot of people to talk to about this, we can probably send you, to workshops, or as an exchange student to a different university where you can learn how to do it. So it's not like they completely expect you to be an expert as such, but they need some experience, that, okay, yeah, this person is familiar with this system at least a little bit, so she will understand how to go forward. So yeah, experience is kind of what they look for in Europe. And although in BSMS you don't really take specialized courses, I would still say your major project is an experience that would suffice. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Hi, Nadi. One question I had was regarding like the language barrier, which I've heard a lot. Like, even the visa application and all. Like,
Yes.
is that a huge issue when it comes to Germany and places like that?
Not really, because I can't Deutsch, I can't German. I can speak very basic German, actually. This also came up during my interview, because I thought that maybe it's a prerequisite, like you have to know German to be able to come here and do research. But no, most universities, as per my knowledge, here research is done in English. Yes, there will be a language barrier, to get around your social life or whatever, yeah, it will be a little difficult. I still face a few difficulties for sure. But there are also opportunities for you to learn. So usually international students are offered classes, you can learn, but it's not a necessity. It is not a necessity. You're not even during the visa procedures, you don't have to show a certificate saying yes, I can speak B1 level German or something. It is not really important, because the research program itself is usually in English, and the research will be done in English. So from a research point of view, you should not, I don't think you have to worry at all, because it is usually done in English. So even in my lab, I get around with English. I can't speak German all that well. I mean, I know very basic German, but it is a barrier only when it comes to social life. I agree, but eventually you catch up, I guess. But you don't have to worry about it when it is when you're applying for a PhD. Oh, I don't know German. No, because usually research here, it's done in English, so it's not a problem. I would say it's not a problem.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Hi, great talk. I really enjoyed.
Thank you.
So, how much, like you said, you are interested in data analysis. So I had this question, like, how much experience do you have to collect, or did you have any experience at all with programming? So, like that's my question.
Yes, I actually had experience with programming languages before, which is probably why I was always interested in this, because I was this ICSE student in high school, so I had this really very intensive, in my 9th and 10th, I had this very intensive, course or whatever in Java. So I actually I knew Java actually. And if you know one programming language to a really good extent, if you understand it, then most other programming languages would become easy, I would say, because the logic is the same. So I had a background in programming language. So I think this is one of the reasons why I actually was very enthusiastic to learn R in my first year and everything. So yeah, I did have an experience. Yeah. And even in IISER, I took up a course. There was a data analysis and programming course where I hadn't done C before, but C was taught to some extent in IISER as well. There was a course, and I took that too. So yeah, it is something I'm actually comfortable with because I had a background. Yes.
Thank you very much. So you used entirely depend upon C and Java while doing data analysis, or you were using a different language while working?
While working, I use Python.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so if not, we can conclude the session here. So I'd like to thank Nadi.
Wait, I think Abel has a question.
Yeah, so I'll read it out faster. So actually, I had a problem. I mean, like we hear about all these funding cuts from the government, like this and like that. So is there any news about that in Germany?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. No, just asking. Just like a lot of us are planning on coming there, and we hear all kinds of news. So it's a little disheartening.
No. Like I said, it's really a contract-based thing here. It's really an employment thing here. So you are protected by this huge set of employment rights. They can't just stop paying you. It's very strict here, and no, you don't have to worry. Like I said, right? Funding issue does not happen. So no, no, it doesn't.
So you're saying the hardest thing is to get in. After you get in, you're basically set.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the definition of set, but yes, I mean,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you would have money issues at all because it's extremely reliable. And like I said, it's a salary, right? It's a job that you have. So you get a monthly salary to your bank account. They directly send it to your bank account. And you also, I don't have to worry about taxes and health insurance because you get the net salary. You know, it's already deducted before they send it to you. So because you're also doing taxes and health insurance and everything, it's important that they send you the salary every month. It's actually quite strict. And like I said, even if you cannot, so say your contract is for 3 years and you cannot finish your PhD in 3 years and you need another year. So usually your working group or your professor, they are quite flexible with it. So they will say, yeah, you can take a year extension and they will usually find some funding source for you. It's not a problem. They will, usually the university itself will give an extension to the contract. So continue getting paid. In case that doesn't happen, like worst case scenario, you will still get unemployment money. You will be unemployed, you will be considered an unemployed person, so you will still be given unemployment insurance money from the government. So that's the worst case scenario. You will still get money. So no, I don't think you have to worry about money or funding issues here. No, it's a good question.
Okay, thank you, Delhi. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'd like to thank Nadi for this really inspiring and insightful talk. It was a lot of fun, and I guess it made this a really wonderful evening for all of us here in India.
Okay.
And
Thanks all of you as well for reaching out to me. I hope I was of some help. I'm not sure, but if somebody wants to ask me something else and you couldn't ask during this talk, please reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, or if you have my number, send me a message directly. So I'd be happy to help. So thanks a lot, and it was nice hearing from all of you. Thanks.
yeah, and I'd also like to thank everyone who attended this talk and participated in the interactive session. I think it's fair to say that this was a grand success. And also a thanks to our faculty advisor, Dr. Sadananda, and the School of Biology for their continued support towards Proteus. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.